Okay, everybody, now that Avengers Infinity War is out in the world, the biggest question on everybody's minds is, what now? How will the story continue to play out in Avengers 4, which, by the way, is scheduled to come out a year from now, May 3rd, 2019?
Let's go to sleep.
Yeah, and cryosleep. We slept too long, thousands of years. We're going to actually get into some predictions for Avengers 4, but in order to do that, we're going to have to talk about this movie's ending. So if you haven't seen Infinity War yet, spoilers ahead. Just pause this video and then meet us back here in the future. Okay, cool? Yeah, all right. Thanos actually going through with his plan to wipe out half the universe gave us one of the bleakest endings and cliffhangers that we've ever seen in a movie, ever, I think. So let's recap the death toll for all of you. First, characters we saw fully die in Infinity War, not just fade away, but like not have a pulse even. Loki, Heimdall, Gamora, and Vision. Yikes. And then there was the characters that were caught in Thanos' like snap wave, fading away into dust in the film's final minutes.
That's your snap?
Snap wave.
There you
go.
Okay, so these are the fader awares. Black Panther, Spider-Man, Scarlet Witch, Bucky the Winter Soldier, Doctor Strange, Falcon, Star-Lord Peter Quill, Drax, Groot, and Mantis, along with Nick Fury and Maria Hill in the post-credit scene. But now the survivors, as we know them right now, are Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Bruce Banner, Black Widow, War Machine, Nebula, Rocket, Okoye, and M'Baku. Now, we're not sure about Shuri and Wong, but we didn't see them fade away, so I'm guessing they're okay, hopefully. Hawkeye and Ant-Man were with their families during this whole mess. Scott was on house arrest, as War Machine said. The Wasp is probably still around as well. She'll be in the movie with Scott Lang. And as we saw...
That movie is set before the events of Infinity War.
Is it?
I
For
believe.
Sure?
That's what we've all been theorizing, because that would make... Could you imagine
half of the
bigger problems?
Also living,
it would be. We also saw in the post-credit final image, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, will be joining.
She's
the
a beeper.
She's got a major
in the beeper.
And check out our post-credit scene breakdown for all that info. And of course, Thanos, the Mad Titan, was the victor in this battle. But you know what? Not the war. I know it's early, but let's discuss some predictions of how the surviving team could avenge the fallen in Avengers 4.
First off, real quick, before we even dive into specifics, I feel like we need to divide it. Like, there's only a couple of categories we could even look at for possibilities. Like, I'll throw it right away. Obviously, it's like, okay, a lot of people are talking about time travel. That's a category that could be happening. So maybe like
using the time stone to rewind the clock.
Yeah, so maybe let's stay inside of time travel just for a little bit. What are our time travel options?
Some power involving the Mind Stone seems like the first go-to idea, right? Because Time Stone. What did I say? I said Mind Stone. Time Stone. Yeah. Thank you. In the comics, the Infinity Gauntlet comics, that's essentially how it works. There's a character who gets a hold of the gauntlet and uses it to basically rewind the clock a day.
Without spoiling the comic series, I'll say that Adam Warlock, the entirety of the rest of this thing is based on him coming into play and changing everything that happens. What's cool is I think it's not going to go that way because that character is barely been touched on,
and he's tough. He's like space Jesus. It's super.
It's so much. It would take. Honestly, I think in the movie slate, there would have had to been another movie to introduce that character. So I don't think it's going to go that Adam Warlock route. But so the Time Stone is one way to go back in time, but it does talk about maybe. Essentially, it's going and getting it from Thanos, essentially, or cutting off sand, taking the gauntlet back, something like that. Also throw out there the possibility of dealing with an Eternal, like Kronos. And the way that Dormammu kind of can be reasoned with a little bit in Doctor Strange. Like, maybe it could be like, hey, aren't you the embodiment of time? Can't you do something about this too? So I think time travel has some possibilities, but in terms of the ones we've actually seen established, it's really Time Stone, right? Like that's kind of it.
That's one way you could do it. I think a theory that usually whenever they go up against Thanos in a comic, he usually is his own worst enemy, and you can kind of get a hint of that in this, is that he maybe regrets part of what he did. Yeah, he does smile at the end to just say it, so maybe he's okay with what he did. But I think there's going to come into play maybe a discussion between Thanos and one of the Avengers, probably Tony, because it's his MCU, where there's reasoning with Thanos, and I think there might be an outside threat Because right now we don't know where the stones are because they're not with it. From what I remember,
he wasn't wearing the gauntlet.
Yeah, so he could still have it, or they sometimes just separate out and they go.
It
somewhere
didn't look
else.
like it crumbled.
It looked like it crumbled because you
it's a
Sam
lot of
has
effort.
said it's a lot of effort, and it's the gauntlet itself is not this amazing thing, right?
Yeah, it was just forged. We knew it was created by Tyrion Lannister,
which was cool. It was Tyrion Lannister. But I think to get a good arc for Thanos to really kind of round this out is that he's the one who fixes it. Is that he
undoes it? He snaps backwards, which is impossible.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which you can do with a metal glove, though.
Warp reality, so he can snap backwards and he fixes it.
Yeah.
But I think it's that you're gonna get kind of a fake out where Tony Stark and the Avengers, maybe they get the stones get kind of shot through time or shot through the universe. So our new kind of nerfed team has to figure out how to get them back together, and they do. And maybe there's an outside threat, like I was saying, that could be a threat here that's not Thanos, because there's plenty of other people that do use these all the time. It's a fun little activity people do. But I think Tony Stark's going to maybe be up there to like, this is me. Like, I've messed up with Ultron. I'm kind of responsible in a way for the events of the first Avengers movie because that was his tower that opened the portal and hurt New York. Civil War is kind of his fault. So maybe he could have almost a redemption arc in that movie. And at the last second, Thanos steps in, he does it, and he gets to live happily ever after in the Soul Stone or in an afterlife. And most of the universe gets back to normal.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I think whatever the solution with Thanos is, the way this character was drawn out in this movie seems like soft power is going to be the way into it. Like, the guy is already having a couple doubts. Like, he's not just like a crazy maniacal villain. He reasons with himself on whether or not this is the right decision to make. And yeah, there was that smile at the end of the movie, but it seems like this guy could be reasoned with in the way that Doctor Strange reasoned with Dormammu.
So for those of you keeping track on our chalkboard that's invisible, or we got time travel options, then we have getting into Thanos' head.
Yeah.
Basically, right? Like some entry college level psychology student
debate.
Is like, really, you sure wasn't your dad?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
He kills another half of you.
Exactly. I'll put separately, you kind of touched on it, but I think just getting a hold of the gauntlet and somebody else doing it, that to me is a whole category of possibilities, because I think it'd be so cool to see in the comic, there's a lot of talk, who's worthy of wielding the gauntlet. You know, it's not exactly the same as it can't be held by someone. Someone else could theoretically hold it, but who should hold the gauntlet?
It's a really cool, if we were to go with that, you've got your main three, Thor, Cap, and Iron Man. And while this is like Iron Man's universe built around him, so it would kind of make sense why he'd use it, you also have two other people that are worthy of wielding weapons of that much power. So it could come down to a very interesting scene. Maybe they all use it together, because sometimes you need more than one person to like wield that much power.
Or a character who's an even greater threat than Thanos takes it over to use to use it for other purposes, and Thanos has to switch sides.
Yeah, in the comics, a lot of the characters they've been translated to different characters in the film, but the characters that are at Thanos' side, actually, a lot of them have their own sights on the gauntlet.
Oh yeah. So, there's also the idea of, like, rather than the time stone, the reality stone, zipping into other realities where maybe these characters are still alive.
I'm going to put that up on a different category, because I think that's alternate realities and alternate dimensions. And there, I'm going to give you my darkest theory.
Ooh, darkest timeline. Yeah,
it is a Dan Harmon reference, actually. I think there is a solution here. It's dark. It's a Rick and Morty-esque solution.
Ooh.
They go to a timeline where it was the exact other half of people that were killed, and they merge them, and technically they get everyone back, but we don't lose the fact that everyone still did turn to ash.
Yeah, that's very cool.
That's a bit too dark.
Spider-Man's still dead, but in the other one, Tony died.
Yeah, that kid's still super dead.
Yeah, but then we don't undo what this movie did, because that's one of the hardest things I think can be pull off. Say it was, for instance, option one up here on our list, time travel, and they go, it's like, great, the biggest movie of all time was just undone. Yeah. Would you feel satisfied by that?
It would feel a little simple. It'd be a bit like we flew through a giant plot hole and we saved the movie, you know. But
you're dealing with a crazy plot device that can do anything. So it's
but so let's make it matter that we did that, instead of like, we can just see. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that they when they set back time a little bit, because I think like, oh, well, I hope that thing is around in the next movie when something bad happens, and why don't we go fix some of the other movies too? And come on, this guy still can barely walk.
Yeah.
I thought when he crushed him, I was like, you got to give him a break. Please don't do this to Rhodey.
And for a second, he's like, "Ooh, my spine is realigned. Oh, no, too far."
It's interesting that you bring that up. The
good bit.
The show Rick and Morty intentionally never touches on time travel. Like there's a box in the shelf in the back of the garage that says time travel stuff as an in joke that they never do time travel, even though that the show's characters are based on Doc and Marty from Back to the Future, or like a really gross parody version of that. They chose to only explore different realities because that opens the world up and it avoids some of those complicated plot holes that you can fall into with time travel. I think using different realities would be potentially a far more interesting way to go in this finale, a far more unexplored
It would be a whole other way to address the fact that we can't deny that we've seen these characters dressed in their previous costumes behind the scenes from Avengers 1. If it's like, okay, well, maybe they actually go get them from a different timeline and in a different moment in a different timeline or something like that without having to go back to their own ones.
I'm very excited for Avengers 4. I think it's going to be crazy and it's going to be fun. I think they were so restricted on what they were able to do with the story by having so many characters, and I think by thinning the herd down to just like the bare essentials, you may get a story that goes in a lot of different crazier places now that we're so prepped from all these other MCU movies doing interesting, bold choices. Like, now that you've killed off half the characters, you kind of open yourself up to do whatever you want, almost, in a way. Well, we'll be making more videos about this. We got a lot to explore and a lot to talk about, a lot of theories that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be rewatching Infinity War over and over again, looking for different clues. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Remember to subscribe to New Rockstars for all of our coverage on Infinity War. It's going to be like dominate everything we talk about. We're very excited to hear what you guys think and to share our theories with you.